The rights of the child, relationships, responsive care and respect are the 4 key principles within the Pre-Birth to 3 guidance. Each of these 4 principles are interrelated and interdependent. This section looks at the rights of the child. Every baby and child has the right to thrive and be nurtured by adults who will promote their learning and development and general well-being, including health, nutrition and safety. Promoting and upholding children's rights as defined by the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, 1989, must underpin all policy and practice for children.
I think it would be important to say that we're a values-led nursery, and that incorporates everyone. So everyone has participated in coming together and deciding what the values are. So the first value would be children first, but we also have values of love, friendship, respect, just to name a few. And we live and breathe them within the setting, and we role model them. And therefore the children are picking up on those messages. The values are absolutely enshrined in the rights of children, and that's demonstrated to them daily.
There's many ways that we can look at the rights of the child rather than just saying, right, what are the rights of the child? I think when we've been working with practitioners, we've been looking very closely at who is the child as a person and a learner from birth. So practitioners are working with very, very young children, and who is that very young child as a person and a learner? They are competent, they are capable, they have so many strengths, but they also have needs, and they need these needs met. And we're really thinking about this child is entitled to key relationships, secure relationships, because within the relationship, of course, the child will be comfortable to learn.
Children are active citizens in the world, and from a very early age, children are finding out about their rights, often through the ways in which others treat them. They are learning to express themselves and about their interdependence with others, how valued they are, about sharing, making choices, and about their place in the world.
One of our questions to ourselves as practitioners is, how can we help children to choose things when they're very young? How does that work? And I think that it's all about paying attention to the situations and experiences that we offer children. On an adult level, choice only works if it's well-informed choice. You can't properly choose something unless you really know what the options are. And the same works for very young children. So, you know, it's no good just saying in a blank room, what would you like to do now? That doesn't really help. What they need is a manageable environment for them to operate their wish to make choices. And we've got plenty of evidence that they both wish and need to make choices. When children are when you've got babies, you could argue that babies never make choices because they're just not old enough. But hang on a minute, there's that whole thing about treasure baskets, isn't there? And the way that as soon as a baby can even sit up propped on pillows, if you put a lovely treasure basket which has got all sorts of real life things in it beside that baby, and you give them real attention, because the thing about treasure baskets is you don't dump it down and go away, do you? You have to stay there and hold the baby in your mind, but not interfere. And that's what that baby needs. And they make choices about, that's the first time they can really think, I'll have that, but I don't want that. But then, of course, when you get older, you get much more sophisticated decision-making by children, and that's right at the heart of that sense of internal locus of control, about making your own choices and, you know, what do I want, or what does she want me to say? And we need to give children lots of manageable experiences to do those things.
I think the area of children's rights is extremely interesting, the whole area of human rights. And I think it's only now that we've begun to think more about what's been called the ladder of participation for children. And when you think of rights and babies, what do we mean there? I've written about rights for young children in nursery education and advocated that they're citizens. They're not waiting to be citizens, they're citizens of the environment they're in. They have democratic rights to influence what's going on. The agency of the child, the power to act, actually enshrines a lot of what we're talking about when we consider children's rights.
Agency is about having a sense that you can make a difference to what happens. So on the one hand, it's very much dependent on a positive sense of self, which is about confidence and about a sense of achievement. It's also agency very dependent on a sense that you're learning. So, and for very young children, I really don't mean a sense that you know things. What I do mean is a sense of being able to explore, to experiment, to find out, to really get stuck into something, to concentrate on something, to feel that if you get it wrong this time, it doesn't matter because you'll know better next time. And that whole sense of the disposition to do those things of exploring, experimenting, persisting and so on, and not worry about learning from our mistakes. This is quite difficult, especially in a situation where we're very keen not to make mistakes. So it's a thought-provoking one for practitioners as well.
Children's rights and the respect that they are entitled to must not be overlooked just because babies and young children cannot safeguard their own interests.
We could name all of the rights, but perhaps the one that means the most for me is the right to be heard on all matters which affect you. How do you do that with a baby? Life books, building up who I am, what my identity is, feeling good about myself, valuing my own competence. These are reflections of children's rights, and they may be in situations, little ones, where nobody much is caring about their rights. They're very concerned about their own adult agendas. So as workers in this field, we need to be particularly careful that we're knowledgeable. And if we're knowledgeable at our level about what rights mean, if we look back at our own histories about whether our rights were infringed at any time in our childhoods or adolescence, then I think we can understand better and take a perspective on these very young children that we're talking about today.
The important thing with involving children and their rights is to recognise that children have the right to be heard and they have the right to be listened to. So when we're working with children, we work with them in a subtle way that when they come in the morning, we're talking to them about what they would like to do with their day, they're planning their day, they're making choices. I think within the environment of the nursery there are choices that they can make within each area so that they can not only plan what they want to do, but they can make choices within any activity.
What game might you play?
We also are watching children all the time, looking for what their interests are and how we can follow those through. So that's, about good observation. We'll have our planning meetings. We're thinking about what is it children want to learn about, what do they want to find out more about. We consult with children about their learning, where, we have our planning meeting and then we take that back to the children and sort of say to them, okay, we see you're interested in learning about shadows and reflections, for instance. What is it you want to find out more about this? And we put their ideas onto our planning board so that their voices are heard in planning.
It is important that staff also encourage children to respect the rights of others, encouraging them to be responsible citizens and effective contributors. Inclusion and responsive care are paramount if we are to promote children's rights. It's about working closely with parents and carers, being able to take different approaches to fit individual circumstances. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child recognises that diversity is something to be valued and celebrated. Children and families have many different and changing needs, and that irrespective of these needs, the 4 key principles apply to every child. When making decisions that affect children, staff should think first about what is best for the child. Listen carefully to the child and take their views into account. ensure relevant agencies are working together with families to enable them to achieve the best outcomes.
Despite what's going on in the adult agendas, we have to maintain that consistency for small children, and all of us do our very best. And we're going to be able to do that with more confidence if we have a very clear view and understanding of children's rights to participate, of children's rights to be heard, of children's rights to play, of children's rights to survival, food and water and all of those things. And it's different, it's relative in our Western society compared to how it might be in other parts of the world. But nevertheless, in Scotland we still have many, many children living in poverty. 25% I think it's sitting at. And we need to think about that and think, are their rights being met? And what about the children who are transported everywhere? Are their rights being met? Do they get outside? So some of that is quite emotional. But it's also extremely important as professionals to be able to engage with our feelings and be objective about those needs that exist. And rights go beyond needs. Rights are where needs and ethics meet, I think. So in the end, maybe what we're talking about is ethical approaches to early childhood and to babies and young children under 3.